I'm not the type to make a big deal about my birthday. Every year, I prefer to have a quiet gathering with my family or a few friends. This year was no different. After dinner, some friends suggested we go out for a bit. Not to a bar, we were only 19 and not old enough to drink legally yet. One of my friends suggested we go off-roading on a remote trail nearby to experience the thrill of the night. It was late, and by the time we got there, it was close to 9 o'clock. The road we were on rarely saw cars, especially at night. We decided to head in, planning to stop deep in the woods, play some music, chat, and enjoy this free-spirited time. Everyone was excited as the car bounced along the muddy and rocky path. The air was filled with that youthful sense of adventure, like nothing could stop us. After we got deep into the woods, we found a small clearing, parked the car, and turned off the headlights. The dark night enveloped the surrounding trees, with only the distant sound of insects breaking the silence. We started playing music, and the atmosphere in the car was relaxed. As time passed, we settled in, cracking jokes and sharing thoughts. Just when we thought the night would continue peacefully, suddenly, everyone heard a low noise, as if something was coming from nearby. We all stopped and looked at each other, confirming it wasn't our imagination. A friend quickly turned off the music, and the car fell into complete silence. The noise outside came again, this time closer, sounding like footsteps, slowly approaching. Someone suggested we drive away, but out of curiosity, we decided to check it out first. The headlights flicked on, illuminating the clearing in front of us. Nothing was there. The tension in the car grew, we all felt something was off, but no one wanted to seem scared. Then, a shadow flashed through the trees in the distance, followed by another. The shadows moved quickly, like someone was darting through the woods. Before we could react, there was a sudden thud at the back of the car, as if something had hit it. Everyone jumped in shock, and the car started up immediately. In the beam of the headlights, we could barely make out several shadowy figures standing far away, silently watching us. They didn't speak, they didn't move, they just stood there, sending chills down our spines. The car sped out of the woods, and none of us felt safe until we reached the main road. After that, no one wanted to talk about what had happened. We knew we had encountered something that night, but we could never figure out what. That trail became a place we vowed never to visit again. My uncle's house was like a small castle, with a vast lawn stretching all the way to the lake's edge. Since he was always away on business trips, the house was rarely occupied. When I turned 21, he generously allowed me to use the backyard for a celebration party. The plan was simple, just a few close friends, music, a bonfire, and some bring-your-own beer. The party was set to start at 8, but I hadn't anticipated so many unfamiliar faces when my friends arrived. At first, the atmosphere was relaxed as everyone gathered, sharing laughs and drinks. I made sure to remind them that the house was off limits except for quick bathroom trips. As night fell, the number of guests far exceeded my expectations. People began to wander across the lawn, some even drifting away from the bonfire towards the lake. My anxiety grew, worried that my uncle might notice if anything got damaged. By the time the party died down, only one friend remained with me. I intended to send him home, but he was too drunk to stand. I decided to let him crash on the couch in the living room, figuring I could clean up quickly the next morning since my uncle wasn't around. Later that night, I drifted off to sleep, only to be startled awake by faint footsteps coming from downstairs. My heart raced as I listened carefully. At first, I thought it was my friend moving around, but as the steps grew closer to the stairs, dread crept over me. I quietly got up and pressed my ear to the door. The footsteps stopped. I tried convincing myself that it was nothing, but then I heard soft whispers, almost like someone was muttering in the shadows below. Holding my breath, I slowly opened the door and crept to the top of the stairs. In the dim light, I could see a shadowy figure standing in the corner of the living room. Assuming it was my friend, I called out softly. The figure didn't respond, instead disappearing into the darkness. My first instinct was to grab my phone and dial emergency services, whispering to the operator that there might be an intruder in the house. They told me to stay calm, lock the door, and wait for the police to arrive. Minutes later, I heard the doorbell ring. The police had arrived and searched the house. They informed me that the back door had been left open, but after combing through the house, they found nothing. After the police left, my friend was still passed out, oblivious to what had happened. It wasn't until a few days later when my uncle returned and asked about a missing luxury watch that I realized the intruder had stolen more than just our peace of mind. I never told my uncle the full truth about that night, even though he discovered the missing watch. He never let me host any events at his house again, and I never found the courage to step foot on that once joyous lawn. I will never forget my little sister's 5th birthday, but not for a pleasant reason. It was at a place that hosted children's birthday parties. All the kids were playing various activities, but I, a 6th grader, found the games too childish and chose to sit in the hallway and play my handheld game. As I was engrossed in my game, a strange woman came over, smiling at me, and said, "Your ex's kid, right?" I recognized she was referring to my mother, so I nodded. She then introduced herself, saying she was a distant relative of ours and that I was probably too young to remember her. She started chatting with me about school, asking how things were going recently. I didn't question it because these kinds of conversations were common during family gatherings. She then told me she had prepared a special birthday gift for my sister, a large dollhouse, but she couldn't carry it alone and asked if I could help her bring it from her car. She also said there was a special cake in the car, and I could have the first slice as a reward. I was almost 12 at the time, and while I knew I should be cautious around strangers, her tone and attitude made me let my guard down. Plus, she was a woman, so I didn't think much of it and followed her outside. Her car was parked nearby, the engine still running, with a man sitting in the driver's seat. I started feeling uneasy, and a question popped into my mind: why didn't the man help her carry the dollhouse? Why was the car still running? As I hesitated, the woman's attitude suddenly became more urgent. She pressed me to hurry, saying the dollhouse was heavy and the cake was about to melt. My gut told me something was wrong, and I stopped where I was, refusing to go further. The woman's tone turned harsh, and she even tried to grab my arm to pull me toward the car. At that moment, I heard my mother's voice calling my name from a distance. The woman's face changed, and she quickly ran back to the car. She and the man drove off together. I rushed back inside, where my mother and family were already waiting at the door. Later, we reported the incident to the venue staff and the police. Although they did their best to help, the woman and her accomplice were never found. That day made me realize how important it is to trust my instincts, and it made me more cautious, never easily trusting strangers again.